Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it looks like YouTube has finally beaten Disney. They're going to eclipse Disney as the biggest media company in the world.
Well, they haven't beaten them yet, but they're very, very close.
Yeah, so this is yesterday, so this is not April Fool's. This is coming from a Business Insider. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about kind of the history of Disney and YouTube, and it does go back several years. In fact, Disney kind of tried to buy its way into YouTube with Maker Studios, and that was a freaking disaster that led to the adpocalypse, or one of the many adpocalypses. So we'll talk about that and give you some anecdotes. But before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to Kickstarter. You've got a little bit of time yet until these pins finally come in.
Like next week.
End of next week, yeah. So Shadowbinder's Hard Enamel pin set. It's on Kickstarter right now. Fully funded, manufactured. They're on their way. Check it out. Thank you for any consideration. These should be good looking pins. This manufacturer does a really good job. So let's talk about this. You sent this over.
Yeah. So apparently YouTube is getting ready to eclipse Disney as the biggest media company. Because, even though you hear about Netflix and everybody being bigger than Disney in streaming, when it comes to being a media company as a whole, Disney was like the big Goliath. And now YouTube is going to probably surpass them within this year or maybe next year.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, it is part of Google, but it's really insane to think of YouTube as an entertainment company, a media company, when historically I've always thought of them as a social media platform, or a website. But yeah, so they're saying they're going to be bigger than Disney. They said YouTube is big, really big, really, really, really big. It's about to become the biggest media company in the world, bigger than Disney. The company is only 2 decades old. Well, that's the thing. Kids are watching YouTube now.
Well, as far as television is concerned too, like on actual TVs, if you remember last year, YouTube ended up getting like 10% of the market. And it was a big deal because we're not talking devices, because YouTube obviously always had people watch on devices, but a lot of streaming networks like Hulu and Disney Plus and that people watch on television, and YouTube was actually beating them on the TV as well.
Yeah, that's kind of wild, actually, to think about, because I personally don't think of, I'll watch YouTube in the background sometimes on TV, but mostly if I watch YouTube, it's going to be on my phone or on, laptop or something. I'm not watching it on TV, but I guess a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm. They watch it like a TV show. They actually have shows that are on YouTube that they tune into. I know, I can tell you, my parents, some of their friends are talking about how they get their news on YouTube now instead of the mainstream media. And people watch like shows as if they're their television shows.
Yeah. I guess it makes sense. A lot of people are watching the news or watching us on TV, and people send pictures in. They've got us on TV, which is so weird, because I'm like, well, if I knew that, I would.
Hi, if you're watching on TV, I'm waving to you, but you can't see it, but I am.
I would have better production values if I knew that, because I do it for like small screens, but there we go. All right. So this person says, some of you know that YouTube is not just a big force in media, but one of the biggest. But most folks, even people who make their living in media, don't fully get just how big YouTube is, even though we keep pointing it out over and over. So right. Moffat Nathanson, which is usually up Disney's butt.
I know. I was going to say, every time there's a Disney investor call and they take questions, it's so and stuff. And Moffat Nathanson is getting to ask questions. Yeah. They did a study, and they said last year that YouTube was only behind Disney by $5.5 billion. Only. I know. Well, Disney's at 50. Was it 50? I can't read the picture. It's 54.2 billion for YouTube. So 59.7 billion for
59.7 for Disney. Yeah. Does that include just their media, or is that like everything, their theme parks and their everything?
I don't know. I think it's just the media. I don't know. I think it's just the media aspect of it.
Because they're saying the advertising revenue for YouTube is the biggest.
Well, yeah, because it's Google and Disney, for their media, advertising starting to become bigger and bigger and more important to them. But the juggernaut when it comes to advertising is going to be YouTube, because it's Google.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what Disney wants. They want like Google levels of ads, and that's where all the ad spend's going. It's getting sucked into video now, like websites. We've talked about this at length. Nobody's spending on websites anymore. It's just nobody cares. So in 2025, they think it's going to eclipse Disney. YouTube started just 20 years ago. They bought the company for $1.65 billion in 2006. It was quick. I remember when YouTube first started. I remember being like, oh my gosh, you can upload videos to the internet and it's not going to kill you. Because I remember wanting to share like viral clips with people before YouTube, and it was such a pain. Especially if the person you're trying to share it with has dial up. It's like, oh, this video clip, this meme, yeah, it's really funny. And in 3 hours when you download it,
3 hours,
in 3 hours, you'll be able to see how funny this actually is. They said you could argue that Google itself is actually the biggest media company in the world since it generates close to $350 billion in annual revenue. I think before it's all said and done, I could totally see the government breaking up.
Oh, YouTube. I believe they're going to. I think from last I heard that they're, even Squid was saying to me about them getting broken up. So I think they're going to be broken up somewhat soon. But back to the point of this, they're saying that YouTube's just like demanding attention. They said it's no longer kids, but everyone. And I'm telling you, it is everyone, because I am literally hearing from people telling me, and we're talking people that are elderly even, they're watching YouTube, that they watch it instead of TV. And I'm hearing it over and over and over again. Everybody thinks YouTube's just for kids. It's not. I'd actually argue a lot of kids are more on TikTok, but YouTube is the big elephant in the room.
They're saying that they're pivoting now in the podcast, and I think they're going to be like the biggest podcasting company, because right now it's Spotify.
Oh, well, good thing we're already set up for podcasting. There we go.
We basically are a podcast. Let's be honest. We are a podcast. We pretty much have been.
We'd be on camera more, except I'm too chicken to go on camera, so I don't get made fun of. Anyway,
that's everybody on YouTube. That's like, it doesn't matter.
You go on camera, but I'm just like, don't make fun of me. Anyway.
I'm a dude. That's why they don't make fun of dudes.
When you're a girl, you're expected to give pretty.
I think you give pretty every day. But.
Oh, see, that's a good answer. But they said the guesstimates as a standalone company, YouTube might be worth $475 billion to $555 billion between Meta and Netflix valuations. So it's in between their valuations, but it's huge.
Well, yeah, but they're saying that YouTube TV is the biggest pay TV provider in the country by 2026. That means bigger than Hulu, bigger than Comcast. People are just going to subscribe to TV through YouTube.
Well, here's the thing, and what I'm very concerned about, which we've mentioned before, is that YouTube is starting to chase Hollywood stuff and like, to promote different clips from Hollywood shows and things like that over the content, these are generated content. And the problem with that is that they built themselves up. The reason they're worth so much, the reason people tune in is because they're not Hollywood or the mainstream media. And by them, chasing that stuff, I hope they're listening. You're going to bite yourself in the ass, because the reason people don't go there anymore is because they want the user-generated stuff. They don't want the Hollywood stuff. And if you start pushing the Hollywood stuff and push out the user-generated content, you're dumb stupid. And here's the next thing. It's not in this article, but I've seen in other articles. The word was Disney is really worried about YouTube. They've been watching YouTube probably because of this. And they've even had discussions about doing user-generated YouTube-type content on Disney Plus.
Yeah. I would hate to see what the rules for that.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, somebody else is going to come in and take it if you try to change it too much and you move away from what makes you YouTube. You're going to destroy yourself. Don't do it.
Yeah, because they're even saying that the biggest thing they have to a breakout star on YouTube is Mr. Beast, but his demographic is actually pretty narrow too. It's basically, tween boys, and so many jokes. But so if you're not a 13-year-old boy, chances are you're not watching Mr. Beast. But really, this is it, because kids aren't watching Disney Channel anymore. We've talked about this. They've moved on, and I think the numbers for Disney Channel, I think they said there's only like a couple 100,000 at the most regular watchers of Disney Channel. It used to be in the millions. And that's something else they brought because about shows was when it comes to YouTube, like Netflix and Disney have like, Stranger Things and the Marvel movies and all that stuff to prop them up. YouTube doesn't, and it's still kicking their ass. What's so weird is they were actually ahead of the curve because YouTube did Red, and that's where Cobra Kai got launched. was on YouTube Red. But what they tried to do is they tried to take their YouTube stars and turn them into like Hollywood stars. They had like, PewDiePie and Rhett and Link and Markiplier doing shows. It doesn't work. So it's like one of those things where it's going to have to grow organically. But that's so weird. Like once they get big on YouTube, somebody else comes along and scoops them up. Like look at animation, right? Once Has Been Hotel got big on YouTube, then A24 scooped them up, and same with the Digital Circus that got scooped up, and that's on Netflix now. So it's almost like it might be the biggest streaming platform, but still kind of like the minor leagues. And then when you get to a certain size, somebody just comes in and is like, oh yeah, we'll take your stuff.
Yeah, but is it though? Because you get paid to have someone bigger do it on network or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you might actually not have more viewership. You know what I'm saying? Then they get more control.
And I've said this before, like I would love to see the viewership numbers on Netflix. Like not just like, here's what the top 10 shows are. Like I would like to see like, oh, you guys spent $50 million on this Tumblr fanfic and it got 3,000 views.
They're not going to tell you that.
No.
And then you have to figure out what it's harder too, because what does a view translate to as far as money is concerned.
Right.
And you have to figure too, those other networks that they're comparing YouTube to, they have a lot of subscriptions and then they have ads. That's why the ad rate was lower. Whereas YouTube, it's there are some subscriptions with some of their TV and stuff, but most of it's made up with the ad revenue and it's user generated driven.
Yeah. So since we're talking YouTube, we're talking Disney, we'll wrap up with this. Maker Studios, that's a name we haven't heard in a long time.
Mm-hmm. We were there though. We were part of it, guys. Part of it.
We had another YouTube channel back in the day that was part of Maker Studios. It was a whole thing. It was a disaster. Disney spent $675 million to acquire Maker, which was just it was just a network, right? So they didn't actually own those YouTubers, but they were part of this MCN, part of this network. And they got, like PewDiePie and Markiplier and all these guys that were really big at the time. And then they realized that like, oh, shittles, a lot of these people aren't brand safe. And
you'd think they would have looked into that initially, or they
just look at the numbers. They didn't care.
Well, I think they thought they were to come in and tell them they had to get in line with their brand guidelines. And I'm like, well, if they want to stay big, they're not going to want to get in line with your ridiculous brand guidelines.
Yeah, and that was it. Like you can't take somebody like PewDiePie and make him brand safe. I mean, he did that himself when he had a kid, but like, you know what I'm saying? It was like they built their platforms because they were edgy, they weren't censored, and it was like, if you can't beat them, join them. Because I remember, speaking of PewDiePie and Ninja, this happened to him too. Like they would go on these talk shows and stuff, and the award shows, and people make fun of them because they didn't know who they were. And it's like,
but the crowd did.
Yeah. Like people know who you are. Like wasn't Ninja on Masked Singer and the crowd?
And I knew who it was. I got it from the clues, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Ninja, and that's who it was.
And the judges had to like look at each other like, who the hell is that? Like
what it reminds me of is the story about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid guy going to Baltimore Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if we ever told.
We have told it, but it's been a while, so you can kind of tell it again.
All right, so Baltimore Comic-Con, during the height of the popularity of Diary of a Wimpy Kid comic books, the author went to Baltimore and they kind of stuffed him in the back corner because they thought, well, he's just like a kid's book, because he wasn't like a comic book guy, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess he got like massive lines and they weren't prepared for it. They're like, why are they all going to this guy? It's like, well, it's like, no, the stick figure comic that you guys didn't think was that big of a deal is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah,
so
I think that was actually before the height of it. That was before because after that point, he wasn't going to con.
Yeah, he wasn't bothering anymore.
Again, what's a webcomic, by the way, too, I want to point out.
Yes, it was.
But, this is what it reminds me of. Like, who's this? They're not as important as we are. And I noticed that Hollywood's starting to lose that arrogance because they're getting their asses kicked on the daily.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so that's it. So it's gonna be really interesting to see where things go. But yeah, I totally think that the Fed might step in and be like, yeah, you can't have YouTube and Google too.
Well, I wish I wish people would step in and say, hey, your AI shit is destroying the internet, and you're putting out, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of blogs and jobs. But here we are.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.